Well, thank you. Honestly, I'm real nervous right now. So it's not because I'm standing in front of you, not because I'm standing in front of a crowd. I built my entire career out of story. I've been on stages. My degree is in journalism, media, and radio and television production. My life, I've been lucky enough to do that as a career. I hosted a podcast 5 days a week, 30 minutes a day. Been able to really speak with CEOs, business leaders, policymakers, national lab presidents, etc. So the idea of speaking here is not really nervous. This is the first time I've ever spoken about Bladder Exstrophy, ever. And so my son says, "Oh, Dad's sensitive," so you might see a little bit of that coming out of me today. I'm also when I speak, I use my hands, etc., and I walk a lot and so forth. So that's not going to be possible here. So Sabrina's going to help me out today. So thank you for that. And while Pamela said that I am a motivational speaker, the other thing that I'm nervous about is that I am not. I have never embraced in trying to be motivational and inspiring to folks. Certainly on this topic. And both of those things I understand are also pretty silly, right? I mean, particularly in this audience, when you're going to talk about something as intimately personal as Bladder Exstrophy, this is likely the safest audience to have that conversation. And so let me start by saying thank you for having patience with me and offering this, what I think and I hope is a safe audience to have this conversation. So no matter how the next several minutes goes, it could be a complete disaster. It could be something that I do know there are a certain set of truths. And the truth is that I know that whatever I need to get through the several minutes, I have that, right? The courage to talk in front of people I have never met before about something that has impacted me even before the day I was born. To have the openness, the honesty, to share some of these stories, and hopefully do so in a way that is helpful to you. When Pam, her and I have gotten to know each other over the last several months, and when Pam asked me to say, "Hey, would you like to be here today and stand in front of this crowd?" I initially said, "No way." I said, let me experience this in Seattle, maybe in Wisconsin next year, I'll do it, right? But I thought about it. Ask my inner circle of trust, my wife, those people that I trust the most, should I do this? And to a T, all of them said yes. And my friend Harry Cohen, if you've got pens out, etc., I'd like you to write down a book called Be the Sun, Not the Salt. It's about that thick, it'll take you about 2 hours. Harry's sole mission in life is to do good and to encourage others to do good. And I'm talking to Harry, I'm like, should I do this? Should I not do this? And he said to me very clearly, you have no choice. You have to. If you do good for one person in the room, it's worth it. My wife then added on to this, and by the way, you've never talked about this, so if this does good for you, there's benefit in that as well. But Harry said you have no choice. And he said that because, number one, obviously the mission to do good, and we are all here in this world, I believe, to do a little good, and this is a unique story that only I can tell in terms of doing good. So I'm hopeful that my story will be helpful to the parents in the room that might have younger kids, young teens, etc., that might be thinking about, hey, what is in the future of my son, my daughter? To those of you that might be young adults, I don't see any in the room, but if you are in the room and you have some questions, I'm hopeful my story will be helpful to you as well. It's taken me 50 years to figure this out, so hopefully, and I still think I'm learning a lot, so I'm hopeful that today's story will help you in that regard as well. And so with that, it's because of that Bladder Exstrophy that I'm going to be able to tell this story. And because I firmly believe that it's because of Bladder Exstrophy that I stand in front of you today. I've been married 23 years. I knew she was the woman. Thank you. I knew she was the woman the day I met her. It took her 7 years. Patience. I have a son, 18-year-old son, graduated high school December of last year. He's going off to college in a couple of weeks. And so it's because of Bladder Exstrophy and being able to be a dad better than I ever had. And driving that, and a lot of and Bladder Exstrophy being a large part of who shaped me as a father. And it's also, why I stand in front of you today. Spent 20-something years in the automotive industry. And to me, helping people grow, helping people laugh, being a good leader, being a good teammate, being a good colleague is part and core because of DNA. Because helping others has been such an instrumental part of my life and has been such an instrumental sort of theme in my life. So my goal today really is threefold. I want to hopefully motivate some folks. I want to share my story with you that highlights what I think is the theme, or consistent with the theme of "be does not limit me." So I want to perhaps share the things that I've gone through and share some of the lessons that I've learned. And for those of you that are still on your journey, like me included, like in different parts of your journey, hopefully some of these things that I'm going to share with you are helpful. The other piece of it is I want to maybe inspire. Share some things that I've learned. It might be different, might be help you think about how you might be living with bladder exstrophy if you're a parent, how your kids might be living with bladder exstrophy. Hopefully that will offer some perspective as well. And finally, I think the theme was already said this morning, but it's this sense of learning together. Not only, again, if I could teach anything, impart anything on everybody here or some folks here, but also this is the first time I've been in this community myself, and so I'm embracing it, and so this is also a bit of a learning, hopefully some learning for me as well. So those are really the goals, and it is really this underarching or this overarching theme of because that I hope is that you see a bit of the story. So Sabrina, let's kick it in. We'll start with introducing myself a little bit further. So this is me, 1973. 1974, born in Gießen, Germany. My dad was military, my mom was German, and before I was even born, doctors, obviously, if you're familiar with this group, knew that something was wrong, prepared my parents, and so forth. And this was really, and it's taken me time to sort of figure this out and hone this, but this is really the start of what has been a constant theme in my life, and that is if you don't believe in me, get out of my way, because I'm going to prove you wrong. It's manifested itself in different ways throughout my life, and sometimes in good ways, mostly in bad, as in my younger days. But I'll share some of those stories with you. So this is 1973, 1974. I didn't have my first reconstruction. I didn't have my closure until sometime in 1975. Got a binder with me of letters and all sorts of things between doctors back then, and I'll share a little bit about where I had all my work done and so forth. But I didn't have my first initial surgery until sometime in 1975. I was born on December 13th, so I'm coming up on 50 years. There's a letter in there dated December 13th, 1974, from Dr. Chisholm, who would actually be my surgeon throughout my life. He says, I think Steve's getting ready for his, he's coming up on 1 year and getting ready for his first reconstruction. My parents, I couldn't really imagine having a son, particularly in that age, living on the other side of the world, or at least in Europe, with their bladder sticking out of their belly for that long. So, speaking of my parents, this is them. This is us in the Philippines. So from Germany, my dad was Air Force. My mom was German. So from Philippines, from Germany, we went to Clark Air Force Base in the Philippines. This is roughly 77, 78. That's my dad. My mom. We adopted my little sister. That's Stephanie. When we were there as well. My mom was fierce in terms of fighting for getting the surgery, getting the care that I needed. And that lasted until about 11 or 12 years old. And I think that unfortunately after that, I became a bit of a project for her. She herself suffered a lot still does today, from senses of self-confidence. She's got a lot of issues that she's still dealing with from her childhood. And unfortunately, for me, as I got past my medical pieces and I was stable, et cetera, I became more of a project on how to fix her. And it caused a lot of strife between her, and I will tell you right now, I don't speak to her because of that. I've chosen to not speak to her, to keep that away. My dad never really, although he tried, right? As I grew older and I began to understand it, I don't think I ever lived up to his expectations. I think I was not man enough. Part of it, as I grew older, I've come to learn that part of it was probably a sense of guilt. He always thought that his exposure to Agent Orange in Vietnam might have been a reason for this. So for he and I, I never really became, I think, lived up to his expectations. And while I give him the benefit of the doubt early on that he had all good intentions for me, my mom and my dad ended up their life together in a divorce, and they hated each other. And part of that hate did boil over to my sister, right? And so I remember very cleanly times when he would literally make fun of me because of my dad, right? And so for these were the early formative years, and you really begin to see, at least in my mind, I didn't know how to harness it then, I didn't know how to really take it and hone it, but this notion of, y'all don't believe me, I'm gonna prove you wrong, right? And that has been, again, the constant that it has been in my life. Next picture, please. Minneapolis Children's. This is where I got all my work done. First one, Dr. Chisholm was my doctor. I love this place. Dr. Chisholm, Dr. Anderson, Dr. McFarland, Dr. Switzer, these are all names that still ring true to me. Right? I remember 4th of July, watching fireworks from the windows of 5 East. I remember holidays, Christmas, right? I remember the Minnesota Vikings came in one year. I think Fran Tarkington might have been. For those of you that are old enough, he used to host a show afterwards called That's Incredible. Yeah. So Fran Tarkington came in. I think he was the quarterback at that point. Big Bird. I remember meeting Big Bird. Ronald McDonald. Chuck E. Cheese came in once. I've got pictures of me and Chuck E. Cheese. And I don't know what sort of kismet this is. My first job was Chuck E. Cheese. I was the dude in the suit. Many years later, I was the dude in the suit. I got hazard pay, $3.50 an hour. At minimum wage was $3.25, so I got hazard pay for being the dude in the suit. I have tons of memories of here, and this place really shaped me. This is a second home to me. And I'm going to share a little bit about how even as recently as 2015, 2016, this Minneapolis continues to be important in my life. Sophomore year, this is my last reconstruction. So a little bit about my journey. I met Anna last night at dinner, and hearing her story this morning, I have a lot of that same story. So 1975, I don't know the exact dates, 2-day phase surgery, when they closed me up and put my bladder in and all of that. Over the years, epispadias repair, etc., but I wore diapers until 5th grade. Lots of teasing and all of those things, right? Kids being kids. In 5th grade, I had a bladder augmentation. Took part of my colon, right, all of those things, and really didn't take a couple of years there of I think questionable health and so forth. And so sophomore year they did it again, and that was the last surgery that I had, my last reconstruction I had. So today I have an augmented bladder with part of my colon, and I catheterize 7 times a day. And so that's a little bit of my story. Before we kind of get into some of the lessons I want to impart, I'm going to give you all an update. Some of the clinicians that they talked about, that talked this morning, there's some things there that I just want to kind of give you an update of where I'm at, if that's helpful as we move on. I didn't know it then, but this is 14, 15, 16 years old in the midst of my parents getting a divorce, et cetera, et cetera. I didn't know it, but while this was supposed to be a good thing in my life, in terms of moving away from diapers and catheterization, et cetera, this actually, as I look back and I thought about this, and by the way, putting this story together was just crazy emotional. Again, first time I've done this, but I realize now that this was me dealing with trauma for the next several years, all through high school, et cetera. The trauma of, hey, I have to catheterize myself 7 times. Hey, I have to carry these things with me. Those type of things were traumatic. And this was really a part in my life where I started to rebel. And this notion of, hey, you don't believe me, get out of my way, manifested itself in terms of rebellion. A drug problem for a while. So smoked a lot of pot, did some other things, drank a lot, 2 packs of cigarettes a day, smoking, ballooned up to 200, 215 pounds, etc. Really rebellious, reckless behavior. And it was as much as this notion, this energy that I have in me that says, drive, get out of my way, I'll prove you wrong, et cetera, as well as rebelling to what were authority figures and people that I just wasn't getting along with at that time in my life. And so it was an unhealthy time, it was a dangerous time, and unfortunately that followed me. Next one, to university. I went to school at Southern Illinois University in Edwardsville outside of St. Louis. Sticking with that trauma theme, I had been scheduled to go to Illinois State University. Had my roommate, et cetera, and this was also in this midst of this battle between my parents. And one day my dad comes to me and says, "Hey, I'm not going to come. You're on your own. I'm not going to help you do this at all," et cetera. No communication with my mom. And so here I am about 2 or 3 weeks before I'm supposed to start my college career. I really didn't have a future. I didn't have anywhere to go. I had no support around me, et cetera. And so I don't know what drove it, but I went to, I had heard of SIU. I lived 30 miles from there, and I found some help. And ultimately, I showed up freshman day. I had every intention to be a nurse. Calling, I guess, based on this one. I thought it would probably be a calling, but spent 3 years doing this and just failing miserably. It wasn't right. I felt I was doing it on my own, but I was not disciplined enough. I had this sort of sense of pride that says, "Hey, I can do this. I can get this. Get out of my way." And manifested itself, obviously, in these bad behaviors. But what it also manifested itself in was this sense of being a jerk. Right? I won't use because of the youngsters in the room, but we just say it was called the A word, more. That was largely driven because I had this chip on my shoulder. I had this ego on my shoulder that said, "Hey, look, I've been dealing with hard things my entire life." Right? And so, but again, this was one of these things where as I lived my my life day in and day out, it was they manifested in the behaviors that manifested in was pretty bad. That is until 1993. I was working in the Olive Garden at the time, working my way, paying for Edwardsville. I walked in and I bumped into somebody. It was her first day on the job, and I knew right then that she was the one. Next slide, please. This is Nikki. This is my love. 23 years. We've known each other for 25 years. So, and no, that can't be. Math is not right. Don't quote me on that. But we've known each other since 1993. We started dating in 1997. She called me in 1998 and said, "Hey, I got a job." She was a store manager of a retail store in the mall. Said, "Hey, I got a job. They want me to be the district manager. I'm moving to Detroit. Do you want to go with me?" Sure. Why not? Right? If we're going to make this work. And so she was really the individual that started setting me, I think, and helping me guide my way. Excuse me. I had mentioned I was smoking 2 packs a day. One day I had swung by our house. We picked her up and we were driving to work, and I just spent my last $2 on a pack of cigarettes and opened one up. And she's like, "Why do you do that?" And I looked at her, threw the pack out the window. I haven't had one since. And so she was a very big inspiration and has been a very big inspiration to me and so forth. And in the time that we were dating before we moved to Detroit, when I got that phone call from me, it was no question. So we moved to Detroit. Next slide, please. And we both have had amazing careers working in the automotive industry. So I've been there in the industry 25 years, various things. Worked for a magazine, worked for a consulting firm for a long time, and we're going to talk about the impact that firm had on me here next. She's been with Ford Motor Company for 25 years, and so we have had the opportunity, I think, to build this career and build this life together side by side. And it is really the impact that Bladder Exstrophy has had on my sense as a professional. We'll talk about that here in a moment. But yeah, she's my partner in life. 2004, when we got married, we never wanted to be kids or wanted to be parents. For me, and I, clinicians in the room, I don't know if this is any sort of scientific empirical evidence behind it, but for me, I was scared to death that what I had with bladder exstrophy was going to be passed on to somebody else, right? And I didn't want my child, I didn't want to bring somebody into the world that had those. So for me, it was never a question in terms of, for her, she just didn't want to carry a baby for me. She didn't want to go through pregnancy. She's like, so for us, adoption was the way we so we started that journey in winter of 2004. We were at Carter's birth on April 25th, 2006, or April 26th, 2005. So 7 months later, we couldn't have made one our own, even if we wanted to do that. Yeah, so, and that's why we only have one, because it was such a terrific story that it's just not something that we wanted to do. She comes from a small family. She's the only child. I am the only biological child in my family. Obviously, we have my sister here in the Philippines. But that's our family right now. Carter turned 18 in April. Graduated high school at 17 years old. December, so I graduated a semester early. He's off to SIUE in a couple of weeks, going to be studying media, mass communications, more digital media, same track that I went through. Those are our 3 dogs, left to right. That's Buddy. Then you got Mitch in the middle, and you got Floyd, who's on my lap. All Boston Terriers. Since this picture was taken, we have a 4th. So for us, yeah. So for us, it's 4 dogs that are really. So this is our little family, and honestly, I sit as a father, and most fathers do, etc. But this kid is going to make really an impact, and I'm really looking forward to that. And for me, my mission has been around bladder exstrophy to shield him from that trauma that I went through, to support him, to encourage him, and I think that is something to take away for the parents in the room that have young kids with bladder exstrophy, that have young teens with bladder exstrophy. The physical side of this is absolutely you can see it, it's very visible, et cetera, et cetera. The emotional, the stuff that happens inside, they need that support. They need that support, as I said earlier today. They need that support when they're young, they need that support, but it gives them the permission, if you will, to thrive, to spread their wings when they have so much stuff that is just knocking on their self-confidence every day, wearing diapers until 5th grade. Right? Those type of things, just the emotional and support that these kids need and these individuals need. For me, it has been a mission in my life to make sure that he has all the emotional support that he can have. And so we got a big couple of weeks now, getting ready to go off to SIU. But that's all my loves right there. I spent a large part of my career at Deloitte, 20 or 17 years, 20 years of my career. And this is where I really started discovering who I am as a professional, and honestly, some of those things that still shape me who I am today as an adult. What you have there is a picture after I left the firm of my colleagues, and then I understand they were asked, hey, when you think about Steve, what are some things that you talk about, or what are some things that come to mind? And for a large part, if I not say every one of those words right there, if not a majority of those words right there, are influenced because of bladder exstrophy. To me, it's very important in this world, as a teammate, as a colleague, as a leader in my organization of where I'm at today, to put others first every day. That's how I start. How can I help you? How can I help you thrive? Et cetera, et cetera. And to me, that has really formed who I am as a professional. As I said earlier, it took me a long time to really hone this. I got passed over for promotion a couple of times. Feedback was pretty clear. You're a jerk. Who wants to follow a jerk? Right? And so if you're a young person in the room, and you're thinking about how you're going to shape the world around you, and as you get into a professional career, and how are you going to be a good teammate, be a good colleague, is whatever you choose to do. My advice to you would be to embrace this as a way to put others first. And you all have a superpower that has taken me 50 years to try to figure it out. And I'm still not very good at it. I fail most days and others. But the point is that we have an innate set of experiences of going through hard things that I think is going to be helpful, will help you as in that role as you grow and find your own careers. Next slide. 2016 was a pretty influential year when it came to Bladder Exstrophy. So a little bit of background. Every year the firm selects 24 individuals to be part of this year-long fellowship that's named after a Ellen Gabriel, who had a heck of an impact on the world. But every year there is the Ellen Gabriel Fellowship, and it is essentially a year-long fellowship that you do a project for the board of directors. Right? And this time, at the time, I don't know why, but this just came into my mind. So at the time, the CEO on the board of the directors, her name was Kathy Engelbert. Today, she's the president of the WNBA. So if you ever watch basketball and you see Kathy Engelbert, et cetera, that was the CEO who we worked for under this 2016 fellowship. It was a highly competitive fellowship to get into. A couple thousand folks in the firm are eligible. They picked 24. And the reason why feedback after I got accepted to the fellowship is because my one-page sort of application letter was all about Bladder and going through it. Had nothing to do with what I was doing in the organization. And for me, this was this was a pivotal moment because it was really the first time as an adult, as a professional, that I had embraced this notion of what Bladder Exstrophy was and what my story was. Right? First week of this year-long fellowship, they bring us all together, they lock us in a room for literally 5 days. And we get to know each other, and we get to sort of understand each other and work together as a team. And about midweek, they kind of send us off to our corners, and they say, write your leadership agreements. We're going to be here until the sun comes up, and all 24 of you are going to say, we're going to write your leadership agreements. And they sit here and they show you an example of a leadership agreement. And so I'm in my corner of the venue where we're at, and I'm writing my thing, and I'm thinking about all these things about being a good leader, et cetera, et cetera. And in that moment, it sort of dawned on me just to tell the story that was in my application. Right? These folks had never, only the people that made the decision, so these 24 folks had never read the story. And so I got up in front of these people, and I said, people have been doubting me since before the day I was born. And I went from there. So 20 minutes of just my leadership credo. I cried a lot. And I came out of there stronger, and I came out of there, I think, a little bit more clear on, because of Bladder Exstrophy, these things I needed to embrace to be a better teammate, to be a better colleague, to be a better leader, et cetera, et cetera. Next slide, please. I think this is what the story that Pam liked. So, I am on my way to run a 140-mile full Ironman next year at 50 years old. Thank you. I have done 60 triathlons, a couple of half marathons, one marathon. I swore when I did that one marathon that I would never run another one. But that is the run portion of the full one that I'm doing next year. Done 5 half Ironmans in my life. My next one is next weekend, so that'll be 6. 2 more this summer. My mission to 4. I'll end the marathon. Keep doing training during the winter, and then Madison, Wisconsin next year is my target for 140 miles. This would not be possible without Bladder Exstrophy. This is when you're there and this is just racing. When you think about the time on the treadmills and out on the road and in the pool and the lakes and all of this stuff, this is really for me, a manifestation of grit and determination in a lot of those things that I've drawn on in my life as a result of bladder exstrophy. Physically, again, just listening to the clinicians earlier today, I said, I had to maybe mention this as part of this piece of my story. Physically, I have never had a problem running this type of stuff, doing these type of things. This Ironman was June 11th, Des Moines, this past year. 36 minutes faster than my last one, so a year older, 36 minutes faster, I'll take it. But 7 hours of work, and I've never had any sort of any sort of problems with my bladder, no sort of problems with hydration. As I said, I cath multiple times a day. I've never cathed in the middle of a race. So, for me, from a physical perspective, if folks are interested, and if it's interesting, I've not had any problems from a physical perspective. I also had the cracking of the hips and spent several months in a body cast when I was younger. One hip is actually a little higher than the other. So when you're doing all of these things, and so it's helpful physically, other than lots of pain and from something of doing this, this sort of endurance race from a kidney function, from hydration function, from a hips and mobility function. I've never had a problem with these things. So if that's helpful for folks. Next slide, please. And finally, I've also sort of I've embraced this notion of embracing what I've learned over my years with bladder exstrophy to do more good. Me and 3 of my buddies, we founded the Kicks on 66 car show and cruise. Take over a 9-hole golf course every year around September 11th, and we invite all sorts of folks to bring their cars. Last year we topped out at 600 cars. We parked them all on the golf course, and we love vehicles of all. Had a helicopter a couple of years ago. One of those big cigarette boats a guy brought in was crazy. So and so this is doing good in the community, and in this, like I said, we do this around September 11th every year, and it benefits first responders, and it benefits fallen veterans or fallen heroes, etc. And so this is really, again, forward to this notion of doing good and embracing kind of some of these challenges and what I've learned in my life with bladder exstrophy. So I'll get into the lessons, and there's really 4 of them that I want to impart on you all. But before I do, where I am today in terms of my health, and again, this wasn't part of what I was going to say earlier, but sort of heard some things from the clinicians throughout this morning that maybe it's helpful, maybe it's not, but here goes. Last reconstruction, sophomore year, call it 89, 90, somewhere in there. Today I have a cystoscopy every year to 2 years. My doctor is Dr. Henry Lai out of Washington University in St. Louis. Openly, I have to remind him of this. He's not a exstrophy specialist, etc. And so as I go in and do my things, I have to remind him every year or 2 years, hey, it's the time to do a cystoscopy, etc., etc. And so, I have to, as we all do, have to advocate on my own behalf and for somebody who's not very familiar with this. And he's been always very, very open and so forth. So I have a cystoscopy about once every year or 2. I have to be asleep when I do it because of my reconstructions and the way my urethra and all that. I can't do it, I'm awake. I did have a doctor that tried to do it when I was awake once. He's no longer my doctor. But yeah, that is, so that's what I general upkeep. I have a small nephrosis on my right kidney. It's been pretty stable over the last several years, about 2 decades now, I think. Got diagnosed about 20 years ago, but and sometimes if I wait too long to go to the restroom, et cetera, I sort of feel that pain and that reflux, and it goes away over time. There was a portion of time, let's say within the last 5 to 7 years, where I had a lot of UTIs. I go have more UTIs than not during the week, during the year. And Dr. Lai helped me fix that We had done a couple of different things, but right now, but knock on wood, I don't get them very often right now, and that is really a result of catheterizing myself more, as well as using a fresh catheter every time, right? And so that's let me just double down on that piece in terms of the using a fresh catheter every time. Going back to SIUE, one of the things that also happened during that time is I fell off my dad's insurance. I didn't have any of my own. So I literally would use 2 catheters for an entire year. It's all I could afford. Right? I was lucky that I didn't get urinary tract infections as much as I did then. Body gets older, all of those things. But for me, what has really been a good prevention and I think management from getting UTIs now has been much more catheterization. I'm up to 7 times a day now, a new one, etc. But still, honestly, I just ordered some. I ordered them 3 months supply. It cost me $800 for 3 months supply. Right? And so, from a financial perspective, it's not easy. I can't imagine that I have to imagine that a lot of folks have struggled with getting those medical supplies that they need. For me, it's it is a pretty significant cost. I am resistant to Cipro. It doesn't work for me anymore. So we have found that out, and let's see. I think generally that and maybe this was kind of what. I find myself pretty lucky that I don't have a lot of I don't have reflux, I don't have those type of things at 50 years old. Going to the learning theme, I am, however, looking ahead, I'm scared. My doctors told me as I was growing, as I was young, because of my augment, I would be more susceptible to bladder cancer, et cetera, et cetera. And so I'm hoping this guy hangs around for a while. He's been here since 1989 or 1990. No problems thus far. Let's hope he hangs out there for a while. But I am scared in terms of what that future holds. And getting to this learning theme, I don't know what I don't know. And I'm looking forward to being part of this community and learning about what the future might hold for people my age and as we get older. So that's a quick update on my health. It is 12 o'clock. I'll be done in 5 minutes, maybe 10. All right? All right, so the theme of because. What is that story all about? And I fundamentally believe that all of that, or a lot of that, is driven by and informed by bladder exstrophy. Sabrina, because of bladder exstrophy, a sense of strength and tenacity, not only for yourself, for those of you that have bladder exstrophy there in the room, but this is a powerful, powerful superpower when you think about the different roles that you play in your life. Partner, friend, parent, sibling. This ability to have strength and tenacity to not only pick yourself up and get through hard things, right, but this ability to say, hey, I got you, let's go. That is a powerful, powerful thing, and it took me a long time to figure that out. It took me a long time to figure out that hey, I got you, let's go, was not about me. It was about everybody else, and you harnessing that and bringing that to bear into helping others. Next one, compassion and empathy, right? Folks with exstrophy have a superpower in terms of compassion and empathy. For me, a lot of it comes from pictures. Next one, like this, right? This is me. That's my nurse Soupy when one of my favorite nurses. But also that compassion and empathy for sharing rooms with other kids who had other things, and folks like this little boy here he's literally in a cage. To the folks that took care of me when I was a young boy as well. All of these things have fed compassion and empathy. Again, to putting other people and what I do to help people around me, whatever role that I have, and whoever might find benefit from that. So compassion and empathy, another superpower that comes from because of bladder exstrophy. Next one, championship and advocacy. This is really, really important. There are going to be people in your life where they are going to find themselves in similar situations. They're going to get old. They're going to find themselves in hospitals. They're going to find themselves in doctors. They're going to find themselves in situations where they have a lot of fear, a lot of questions. They don't know what to do. Folks with bladder exstrophy have a huge leg up in being champions and being advocacy for those people you love and those people you care about in those moments. My wife says, I do doctors, Steve, you do hospitals. Hospitals to me are relaxing, they're nostalgia. I go there to let people take care of me. My cystoscopies are likely one of my favorite days of the year because I have to do nothing, right? And I can just sit there and relax and feel, right? And so forth. And so this notion of championship and advocacy, not only for yourself as you get older, but for those around you in your life. And when your mom gets older and your dad gets older and your grandma and your grandpa get older and your friends and your spouses and your partners need to go and do whatever they have to do. I just had her first colonoscopy, right? And it was powerful. She's never had a surgery in her life, and so it was powerful to be able to be that champion and that advocacy for them. So this is a superpower as well that I think because of bladder exstrophy, I think it gives us that live with this a little bit of a leg up. Next one. Again, the mental health and well-being in my friend Harry, who helped me guide me through this, he said, look, everybody has mental health issues, so you got to be careful around this one. So let me try to talk about it in a way that, for folks with bladder exstrophy, at least with my story, there is a constant kid inside my head that tells me I can't. Every day, you're not good enough, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If you're able to get through that because of your physical because of the physical hardships that you've come over, your ability to sort of deal with and manage through that mental stress, it gets better. You're going through hard things, etc. But then this also ties very well to and very closely to this notion of being helpful to others and advocacy and championship. Because in this world where, in today's day and age, where it's so much around inclusion and feeling like you're validated and feeling like you're part of something, that regardless of whatever it is, how you define yourself, this notion of being supportive and being an advocate and supporting other mental health and supporting others' well-being, somebody with bladder exstrophy has gone through those things, is innately more enabled to help in those things, I believe, than the folks that have. So those are the sort of the 4 lessons. Next slide, please. And so it's because of bladder exstrophy that when I think about strength and tenacity and compassion and empathy and championship and advocacy and mental health and well-being and the various roles that I play in my life as partner, parent, friend, leader, people will sometimes ask me, would I change? Would I wish that I was not doing this? Nope. I cherish this. I honestly cherish this. It's taken me a long time to get there. And so if you're wherever you are in your journey, if you're wishing for something else, I would encourage you not. Because of bladder exstrophy, I've been able, today I am a very happy husband, proud dad, I think a good friend to my friends, the people I care about. I think a good leader to the folks that rely on me and look to me to help them thrive. And I honestly believe none of that would have been possible or would have been a different story if not but for bladder exstrophy and the journey that I've had. So with that, next slide. This is 2016. I said Minneapolis Children's was still in my life. So 2016, my boy and I, Carter, did a 7-day road trip. First day was travel, second day was travel, but the 5 days in between was 5 different baseball games in 5 different cities. We went from Cincinnati to Detroit to Chicago to Milwaukee. This is the last stop, Minneapolis. So after the game, it was the Twins versus the Red Sox. We went, drove down the street to Chicago Avenue, and he and I sat there and we talked about it, and we took this picture. So this notion of where my story started and where all of these reconstructions have and my desire in life to be a dad that was better than mine and to give my kid, to shield him from those things that were hardships in my life, this was a powerful moment. And so this is, it continues to this was a moment, and And I think it was, again, one of those moments that if not but for Bladder Exstrophy, we would not have shared this. So with that, I am 7 minutes over. That is my story because if you have questions about anything, I'm happy to entertain them. I hope that was helpful in some degree. Thank you for being a safe audience. I appreciate it, and thank you.